Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. When we think about consciousness, we typically think about the brain because it's the communication center where billions of neurons are sending electrochemical messages throughout the body. When a significant number of neurons are firing in a synchronized way, a pulse becomes detectable, and the speed at which it pulses is known as its frequency. Our brainwaves are actual electrical signals that are measurable from outside the brain, right on the scalp. Electrodes receive the brain's electrical pulses and graph them. This is known as EEG. There are 5 different frequencies of brainwaves that we experience, and they indicate different types of activity. Basically, faster pulses or faster frequencies have shorter oscillations in their wavelength, and they correspond with more brain activity or heightened mental states. On the other hand, slower pulses correspond with longer oscillations and slower activity, such as sleep. Neuroscientists have known for a while that we can influence our brain waves and thereby change our own mental states through activities like meditation, breathing techniques, positive thinking, and visualization. It's led scientists to question what the study of brain waves can tell us about the nature of consciousness. Something recent that came out of neuroscience is research that shows when 2 people are in a conversation, their brainwave activity will slowly start to synchronize and eventually match each other's. So not only can we influence our own brain waves through our activities and our thoughts and feelings, but also we can influence each other's brain waves. I mean, we do it whether we want to or not, I guess, on a day-to-day basis. Other recent studies in neuroscience involving mini brains grown in labs from fetal stem cells have recently become controversial. While incubating in a petri dish, just a small number of neural stem cells multiply into a vast number until you have a mini brain the size of a pencil eraser. The petri dish contains a specific recipe with proteins, sugars, fats, and other nutrients the brain needs for energy. It's like a cocktail of blood for this brain in a vat. But given the lack of input or organs to go with the brains, scientists weren't sure whether or not these mini brains would really be able to circuit and develop the way that a fetal brain actually would. Here's the thing. These mini brains actually pulse out electrical currents and have measurable brain waves, just like fetal brains. Zombie brains! Shut up. Researchers hope to be able to study the way complex diseases like epilepsy work, as well as study mental disorders like schizophrenia and get a better understanding of prenatal brain development. Director of the stem cell program at the University of California, San Diego said, after these organoids are in that 6 to 9 month range, that's when the electrical patterns start to look a lot like what you'd see in a preterm infant. And what we could tell is not only the neurons are connecting to each other, but they're forming these microcircuitries, Motri says. That's when we started seeing the brain waves. It's alive! It appeared that the brain cells were communicating with one another and forming networks, but what they wanted to know was, how close is that to the human brain? To find out, the team trained a computer to recognize the brainwaves produced by babies born up to 3 months prematurely. Then they had the computer look at the brainwaves from organoids as they grew and matured in the lab. After 25 weeks, the machine can no longer distinguish the brainwaves coming from the human brain and the brainwaves coming from the organoids. Of course, the presence of human-like brainwaves, electrical impulses, which we may think of as life force, that existing in petri dishes is bound to raise some ethical concerns. Will scientists be experimenting on Frankenstein consciousness? If they're making Frankenstein, it should be a movie, I'm just saying.
It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Nita Farahani is a professor of law and philosophy at Duke University. She believes the rapid progress in mini-brain research means scientists need to be thinking now about the potential implications. She told NPR, "It's possible that an organoid far off in the future could develop something that looks like consciousness or any kind of sentience, the ability to feel something like pain." Neurons can transmit messages with or without brainwaves. In fact, scientists haven't really answered the question as to why brainwaves even exist. They just seem to be a natural result of the rhythm that forms from the brain circuitry. So since brainwaves are unpredictable and can be influenced through your conscious intention, it's led neuroscientists to wonder if brainwaves are actually what signify and indicate one's consciousness. Are brainwaves the result of a person identifying as I and being aware of their own existence? Neuroscientists can't even agree on a common definition of consciousness, so they aren't about to answer whether brainwaves indicate conscious awareness of an entity anytime soon. Meanwhile, philosophers debate over whether or not a rock is conscious or not, and whether the entire universe is one singular conscious entity of which we are all a part. Scientists, meanwhile, have real-world questions to answer. They have contributions to make to the fields of technology and medicine, which affect the real world, public life. So realistic, human-like brainwaves forming in these mini lab-grown brains are actually a good thing for scientists, because they now can see how these brains will help them as materials for study for these diseases like epilepsy and potentially disorders like schizophrenia. But scientists started raising ethical concerns again when they implanted this lab-grown human brain tissue into living mice. In this research study, the mice received human lab-grown brain tissue and their brains vascularized the new tissue. Here are the images of blood vessels that formed, giving life to sustain the brain tissue and integrate it as its own. Professor Farahani and 16 other prominent scientists, ethicists, and philosophers came together to put forward a report that was published in a science journal. The group emphasized that transplanting human brain tissues into animals could lead to, say, mice with exceptional mental abilities. They pointed out that whereas brains grown from fetal stem cells can simply be thrown away at the end of an experiment, it's a different scenario for human tissue that has been implanted in animals. So, for example, let's say you have an intellectually enhanced mouse. Okay, this thing is just looking at you like a human child, like it's alert. What kind of protection should it get? Is it going to have the same rights as, say, a chimp, which rather than be killed after the experiment would like retire and be taken care of in a facility? If we are making them more intelligent as a means of researching our own brains, aren't we risking like creating these hybrids? We would have to now learn how to coexist with them and cohabitate with them. Like, this is some science fiction here. What do you think about lab-grown mini brains? Is this all too Frankenstein for your comfort? Or do you trust the scientists and feel like this is what's necessary in order to make advances in medical research? Imagine Silicon Valley getting a hold of these brains and connecting them with AI. No, don't. Unimagine it. Maybe the potential benefits outweigh the risks, or maybe we're playing with God, taking it a little too far. Let me know in the comments down below. Really curious to get your take. Thanks a lot for watching to the end. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you in another video. Bye for now.